everyone, and welcome back to Bending the Narrative here on the Aspect Network. I'm one of your hosts, Kate Kronquist, and joining me every week to discuss the latest and the greatest in the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender is Alex Batts. Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. I am super excited to get into what I would argue is maybe the most underrated episode in this show. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm hyped.
Hmm.
So today we're continuing our journey through the Earth Kingdom with the Great Divide. And to start, before we get into things, like we do every week, we're going to take a look at the Avatar world map and track Team Avatar's journey. So they make a decent amount of progress from the last time that we saw them. They're going in the right direction this
They're
time too. They're
going in the
going
right
north.
direction, but I
Yeah,
don't think they go that far.
I mean, they,
Make a
they
good
go
job.
a decent amount, more than
Yeah,
last time, I think,
yeah,
and so that's good. At least it's the right direction still. So
yeah.
that's a
Like I
big
do like in
plus.
this map, you could see how long they can go before they have to make a stop. Or like before they
Hmm.
have to stop probably for Appa to refuel to or
Yeah.
refuel. Well, technically
Sorry.
refuel the bison, have him eat.
Yeah.
He has five
Uh-huh.
stomachs.
Yeah, which is wild. I noticed you made a note about that, and that's insane.
Yes, yeah,
Which we'll get
we'll
into
talk
that.
about that. Yeah.
But yeah, so they're going north. They get to a desert region. It's the Grand Canyon. It's the Avatar's Grand
It's the
Canyon,
Grand Canyon.
which
Yeah.
is so sick. It's gorgeous. We'll talk about those visuals in a minute. But yeah, I mean, I love, seeing their progress is always fun, and they're moving in the right direction. So good for
Yeah.
them. Good on
And we
good on
see
Team
too
Avatar.
on this map, we're close to where actually the Serpent's Pass is, which we'll
Hmm.
come back to later.
Yeah,
We're right
we're like
below Bossing
up.
Say. Yeah,
We're
we're
like a
like,
little upstream of the waterfall that they were at a few episodes ago,
oh
which is
yeah, we
cool.
are. Mm-hmm.
They're like, see, that's why they've made like overall not that much progress, but they're going
Somewhat, yeah.
the
They're
proper
going the right
direction,
direction now.
which is it's good. So
That's saying something.
good, proud of you, gang.
Proud of you, gang. But yeah, as Alex said, we are traveling along with the Zhangs and the Ganjins today with episode
Hmm.
11. It's directed by Giancarlo Volpe, and it's written by John O'Brien. And if you are just joining us, we will be discussing the show in its entirety, so be warned about spoilers.
Hmm.
Now, Alex, let's start with you about this very underrated episode.
Yeah. So you said this a couple of weeks ago, a couple episodes ago, where you were talking about people calling episodes filler, and you have a bone to pick with
Yes.
that. A lot of people call this episode filler, and I have a bone to pick with that. I disagree. I
Mm-hmm.
love this one, which ironically,
I see where they're
actually,
coming from, but yeah.
I can understand it. Like I get it. And ironically, I also, whenever we were talking about it beforehand, before we did this rewatch, I like kind of forgot about most of this episode. I can't lie. And
I
so
did,
I
yeah.
was like, oh, I didn't remember. But sitting down, rewatching it, it's so good. It's such a good episode. I feel
And
like
to
it,
say like this is kind of people do say they rate this episode very low, and this is one of the most low rated I think episodes of the entire series. But
mhm,
that's saying a lot because it's still a
yeah.
good episode.
I mean, like the bar is just
The
like
bar,
in
this
the
is the lowest
stratosphere.
it
So
gets.
of
Like,
course, yeah,
damn,
like the lowest is still much better than like
much
any
better
other
than any
episode of
show.
anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's
So
seriously saying something.
no, it's great. I think it's really, really good. We'll get into my reasons why later on and as we get through it.
Mhm.
But to start, we have Sokka setting up a tent, and then that quickly gets into a sibling fight, a little bicker between him and Katara, because he's setting
Yeah,
up the tent, and she's like, "Hey, bro, what about the tarp?" And he's like, "Hey, I don't know if you noticed, but it's dry season. We don't need it, and plus, it's
yeah.
a good blanket." And she's like, "Yeah, but what if it rains?" And he's like, "But what if it doesn't?" And then I set it up for nothing, and so they just get super mad about it, and then he has
They
to,
just bicker.
yeah, he has to pick a fight, and it's like, oh well, your kindling that you grabbed sucked, and so they just start
Yeah,
arguing about it, and like it's just a really funny thing that they, and also I love his point of like, oh, but then I would have set it up for nothing. I'm like, dude, you could have just like set it
I
up
mean,
and
you
it
just
rains, you
set it
good,
up. Yeah, but then he
because
like
like
wants a blanket, and
yeah, which
there's
but
so
also if it's
many.
dry season and they seem to be in the desert, like why you need an extra blanket, man? Like what? How cold do you
Yeah.
get when you
Well,
sleep?
the desert does get cold at night.
That is true. That's a good point. But like it's a great bicker moment. But then it
It is a
really
good like
like
sibling moment too. Like
it's a
that's
great yeah.
again, I say it a lot. That's exactly how siblings fight. That's I've had vacations. I've had this exact fight with my brother. I'm like, you're
Yeah.
insufferable. Just do this. Why are you doing this? And Yeah.
And also, especially when it comes to like camping and setting up a campground, like I
Oh
used to go camping
yeah.
all the time whenever I was younger, and like
Oh.
it's annoying. Like I loved it, but also like there's a point in the setup process where like I hate all of this and I want it to just be done. Like I'm not doing another thing. This is awful. Like it's fine how it is. It's okay. And so
Yeah, you're
like
like,
it,
whatever. It's good for tonight.
yeah. But the thing I think that this opening does well and that happens is because Aang ends up coming in and he's like, he solves the problem. He's like, just
Mhm,
switch jobs and it'll be fine. And they're like, fine, I guess. Like, that's okay. But it
mhm.
really like shows the like this small fight is an encapsulation of
Is
the
the
larger,
this
yeah, it's the
episode,
larger,
yeah.
it's this entire episode is the like
Mhm,
the two sides fighting and very being very steadfast in their
mhm,
belief that they're right and they're doing the thing and like they won't listen to the other person, right?
mhm,
And then it's Aang's job to solve it, and they literally even have a line about how settling feuds and making peace like is the Avatar's
mhm.
like job. And it's like I literally took in my notes. I was like, "Oh, super subtle intro here, like
Super
opening. Like
subtle, yeah.
they're really just like laying it on, but it works. It's a very genuine thing, and so it's cool to see. So we get that, which is great. He solves the problem, and
Mhm,
then there's a little fight between Appa and Momo, also that Aang quickly
mhm.
solves, and he makes the comment which we talked about that Appa has 5 stomachs.
Yeah, like, he needs a
Insane.
bigger piece, but, like, 5?
That's crazy. I love that.
Can
That's just a
animals
casual.
have
I know
I
cows
know
have a lot
frog
of stomachs,
yeah.
right? I think I remember that from like elementary school. I haven't. I don't really look at
I'm
animal
looking up
like.
how many stomachs do cows have. 4.
Oh, that's close. Bison, I'm pretty sure just have the
Oh, they
one.
technically only have 1, but it's split into 4
It's five. Oh
separate
yeah, the
compartments.
sections. Yeah. Hmm.
I don't like
That's
that.
interesting.
I just I don't like
not
that.
not a fan.
Not a fan
Um,
of that. I don't
but
like
yeah,
to think about that too much, but
they just casually drop in the fact that he has 5 stomachs, which is wild.
yeah.
And so then we get to see like where they are, and they're at the Great Divide, which is very not subtly the Grand Canyon. It's just
They're
the
like, "Look at its beauty and how grand
they're
it
like
is."
they're like this is the biggest canyon in the world, and it's like ah cool. Which I mean, but you can't fault them for like it's an awesome landmark and like
It
natural
is.
thing. Like it looks sick. It's so cool. Um, so they
And
have
it's a
that,
great
and
little
apparent
thing to have in, yeah. It's
yeah,
very
it's like oh
creative.
that's it makes sense as like a I don't want to just say landmark again, but like a natural like
Like a
thing.
natural formation and, like,
Yeah,
showing the variety of land that's in this world and
or like as a wonder of the world, like it's one of the
yeah.
wonders of the Avatar world, right? Is
Like,
like
it's more than
the Great
just
Divide.
forests, water, earth, fire. Like,
There's a
there
huge like
this
thing that
this
like
world is expansive. Like, I know a lot of
yeah.
things in some fantasy, there's like, this is the desert planet and it's just desert. This is the
hmm
snow planet. It's just snow.
Hey, don't subtly comment Dune like
Sorry.
that.
But it's
um,
like,
no,
but
yeah,
you're like, how is
it's
there
like a
not
one
more?
region
That's
thing. Yeah,
yeah.
it's a very stereotypical thing for in a lot of like sci-fi and fantasy and stuff like that. To like, yeah,
Yeah.
you have the like one biome. There's the word I
Yeah,
was looking
this is
for.
the biome, that's it. But I like that
Yeah,
it mimics this one mimics Earth a lot where it's they do
more
have
varied.
more
Yeah,
varied. Hmm.
which is cool, and it's also one of those things where like you feel like everyone in the Avatar world, like you can mention the Great Divide and like people know what you're talking about because it's this
Yeah.
huge thing. It's the Grand
Hmm.
Canyon.
The Grand
um,
Canyon.
so they get there and they see they need to get across, right? And they show up, and there's this refugee, right, who is
Hmm.
going, and he comes up and he's trying to get this guide to help him across, and he mentions there's this other group of people that comes up, and they're like, "Oh, is that your tribe?" And he's like, "Oh no, these are the terrible,
I don't
disgusting people."
associate with them. I'm
Yeah,
like,
like I don't
"Ew."
like. How dare you think that I'm a part of their group, right? And then so then
Mhm.
we're introduced to the Ganjins and the Zhangs. I believe I'm pronouncing both those correctly.
Yes.
And so they are these two like competing tribes, and they're very like stereotypical in their representation. Like it's a very like clean cut. Like one is the like super clean and like pompous and like prissy type tribe, and then the other one is this like rough and grungy and like
Hmm.
very like rugged tribe, and they're both the like polar extremes in that respect.
Which their names actually do translate exactly to that. Like Zhang is this is like a fun fact, Zhang is Americanized, the Americanized pronunciation. I can't speak. The Americanized pronunciation of the Chinese word for dirty. And
hmm
then Ganjin literally means the cleans.
Yeah. So it's very like
Hmm.
Again, not the most subtle thing, but it works. Like it gets
Yeah,
the
but it works.
it gets the point across. And I
It
also
was good
though
enough.
I do have to comment. I love the robes for the Ganjins. Like it
Yes.
is one of
I
my
didn't think
favorite
about that.
designs in the entire show. Honestly, like I saw that it's because it
Really?
really reminds me of like the more ceremonial like Jedi robes and stuff you'll see, and like it just
Ah.
looks like it's such a
Ah.
clean color comp. Which clean, it's such a nice
Oh.
like color combo and just looks it's so cool. It's a very nice design. I like it a lot. And then
I really didn't think about the robes so much, but you're right. They are like very pretty. They have these like trim designs that are very
it's
nice.
just the like
Yeah.
white and gold and like it just like oh
Hmm.
looks great. And then it even more the like their whenever they tell the story later on, Wei Jinwei, I can't remember which is which. Um
Hmm.
but like he has a like shoulder cape too that's like makes it even cooler. Like oh, man,
Ah.
that's a sick design. So yeah, we're introduced to these two tribes that
Hmm.
absolutely hate each other, can't
Yeah.
stand each other, and are both trying to get passage across the Great Divide. And
To make it to
there's an
Bossing Say, which is
yes,
important. Hmm.
that's where they're trying to get. And
Which,
there's an earthbender. Oh,
looking
Blessing says,
back at the map,
is that the
oh, I
direction they
guess
even need to go?
I guess are they on the other side? So would they be going backwards? I'm guessing.
I mean,
So if we pull up the map again, we see that there's the Great Divide. There, so there.
mhm,
I'm guessing we'll be like on top of it and going down because then there's the Serpent's Pass to
Bossing
Bossing
say,
Say,
yeah,
unless they're not going the Serpent's Pass, so
and
they
they're
want
going
to
around.
go around. Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay,
Interesting,
so it works. It can be
interesting stuff.
interesting stuff to think about, but it can be justified, anyways.
Yeah, so they're trying to get across, and the Earthbender is the canyon guide. This guy that comes
Mhm.
in, and he's the one who like escorts everyone across. And the tribes are not wanting to go with each other. They refuse to travel together. They're like, "No, I won't. You think I'll travel
Yeah.
with these people?" And so it's Aang trying to get them to settle their differences and travel together. And the first point of contention is that they have to get their sick and elderly across, and I believe it's the Ganjins have the elderly that need to be across, and the Zhangs have the
Mm.
sick.
Have
But I
the
can't.
sick, yes. The
Yeah,
dirt, no, the Ganjins have no, the Ganjins have
one
the elderly, the Zhangs have the
the
sick.
sick. Yeah,
Because
and they're like
she makes
no.
a comment about, oh, well, maybe if you didn't eat so healthy, your people wouldn't live as long.
Yeah.
Like
So
maybe if you were cleaner, you wouldn't get sick.
get sick. Yeah.
Like, damn.
Um, so there's that. And then Aang brings up the solution of like, okay, well, the sick and elderly can fly on Appa, and then like the rest of you, would you be fine to travel? And they're like,
Hmm.
I guess that's acceptable. Like they
Yeah.
begrudgingly are like, fine. And so that gets which one, it's a smart thing. It eliminates Appa from the equation whenever
Hmm.
they get down into the canyon, which will be important because spoiler alert, they get trapped there.
Yep.
uh, and so that's how they begin the journey down. And they're going down into the canyon. The Earthbender is bringing them down. And also, important thing, it's been mentioned that these tribes have been feuding for hundreds of years, and they seem to,
Hmm.
I believe, since birth, basically, to like hate each other, even
Yeah.
though they're both in the same situation. They have the same end goal, but like it's
Hmm.
just the thing of like the hate for the other has been like
Yeah. It's
gestating
kind
and like
there's a similar
perpetuated.
conflict in the real world, but it's like that, like these two countries that have been feuding forever, and it's like
Hmm.
it's a very old tale, but they're
Yeah,
basically raised at this
I
point
mean, it's like
each other
it's
'cause-
the stereotypical like thing of the people growing up on stories or like a war going on for so long that
Mhm.
like no one can remember what it started for. They just know that that's how it's been, and
Yeah.
so they like carry that on. Um, and so they figure that out. They get down into the canyon. And one important note, the guide says that there can be no food brought down into the canyon because that will make the canyon crawlers come out, who are, oh my God,
The
terrifying. It's
scariest things ever. Nightmare fuel.
they're crocodile spiders.
Why?
Awful,
Why?
terrible. But so no one
Take
can
it
eat any
away.
food. So they have a funny bit where people are trying to like eat all their food super quickly before they go down in there, which is great. And they get in there. The guide is using some earthbending to make a safe path for everyone. He gives us some info on how the canyon was formed. He says it's
Yeah.
earth spirits who were angry at local farmers for not offering them proper sacrifice. which I just think it's super interesting they just like
I
throw that in there.
Yeah,
But
like there's just some lore, like there's like this is how the people think
mhm.
in
And
this
like
time,
this
and
is
it
what
could be possible because we know that there's like the badger moles and
mhm.
there are earth spirits, so it could be that, or it could genuinely be like naturally formed.
It reminds me of the way that like Greek mythology and like the ancient myths were, thought of and come
Mm,
about to like explain natural occurrences in their world. They're like, well, we didn't have, so the gods did it, and so like
yeah.
it makes sense, and like that could be like um factually justified here, where like it could be the case that really is true because as you just
Yeah.
said, like there are earth spirits and things like
There
that. So
are
like
that. Like that does
of course, so
exist.
like it could really be a real thing, but it also just goes to show how like cultures will do that to explain
Mhm.
things that are
Explain
happening,
things.
like
Mhm.
regardless, which is cool. I like that. So they get across this path, and
Mhm.
then he destroys the path when they get to the bottom.
Yes.
And
I
whenever he
love this
did
little
that,
tidbit.
I was like, "Hey man, couldn't you just like leave it?" But then Aang asks specifically that, and he's like, "Well, they're fleeing from the Fire Nation, so we don't want them to be able to follow us." And I was like, "Ah, that's smart,
That's a
actually."
good
I
point.
was like, good point, dude, and good job, writers, for thinking about that. Cause yeah, I was immediately like, can you just like I was like, this dude's just trying to keep his job. Like
Yeah.
he's just like is doing this. But there's a reason. And so this guy, though, a canyon crawler appears
Oh
and
my
he
god.
throws the guide.
This part is like actually I never watching it I was like I think this is genuinely the most violent thing I see in the show.
Yeah, it's pretty
Like
brutal.
this is the most I've ever seen someone get hurt. Like we've seen a bunch of things like that happen off, like things happen off screen, or
Mhm.
like they get hit with a rock, but they're fine. They get up. Like his body gets like thrown around, and he falls
Ragdolled.
on the ground and his like a rag doll, and his
Yeah.
arms are like twisted, and like that's the first instance where I'm like, that looked like that hurt.
It's like
Oh my
borderline
god.
body horror stuff.
Yeah,
Like
like body horror stuff. And he's like an old man too.
yeah. And I
He's
love
an old
Katara
man.
just going up and being like his arms are broken.
Yeah, and I was
It's
like,
just like
damn,
it's like, oh, okay, well, that's a problem.
that's a big
Because
problem.
yeah, then they're trapped in the canyon, obviously, and so the tribes are very, of course, still angry about being with each other. And so
Mhm.
Aang's solution is he's like, all right, well, y'all can travel separately to like go and make the distance that they need to try to travel through the canyon. And so he divides them obviously into the two tribes, and they start going, and then Katara goes with one and Sokka goes with the other.
Mhm.
And I really love that in the camps both Sokka and Katara's biases are validated by each of them.
Yes,
Like they're like
yes.
asking questions, and the camp is like, oh yeah, of course we like did this, and they're like, these people are
And
so
they're like,
smart.
exactly, you get it. Like,
Yeah, and it's just the like complete like playing into the expectations that you already have. So like,
mm,
and that just like gets you more rooted in your line of thinking and like your line of thought, and it just highlights that even more, which is great, which is like my favorite thing that this episode does. It's so good.
it's so true.
um
Yeah.
and then also, though, we see that both tribes brought food and they all start eating, like both of them. And
Yeah.
the Ganjins are like, well, we knew that the Zhangs were going to bring food, so like, why should we have to starve if we know they're going to be eating? And
Which,
then
like,
yeah, and like you can see the logic, but then the Zhangs are like, well, we knew that the Ganjins were going to think that we would bring food no matter what, so like, might as
so, like,
well.
why not?
And so it's just
Damn.
that thing of like people, I forget exactly what this is called, and I feel like I might have actually brought it up in a past episode too, but it's where people, like two groups of people or two people, will make decisions that are to both of their detriment because they assume that the other person will make that decision. And so like it
Mm,
would be smarter for both of them. There's a specific philosophical term for this, actually, like it's a straight
yeah.
up like it's a thing, but like it would be smarter for both groups if they didn't bring the
If
food.
they didn't do that, yeah.
But they assume that the other one will, so they do, and so they act not in their own interest because they assume that the other person won't. And so it's just this thing where like, oh, it's so bad. Like you could, if you just make the right
Yeah,
decision,
if you
then it'd be
both just made the
fine.
right decision, you wouldn't be in that situation. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like that's the explanation for why the canyon crawler ended up attacking, because there was food the whole time, uh,
Mm-hmm.
which is not good. And then we also get the like
The
explanation
story.
for why the tribes hate each other. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So from the Ganjin side of things, they mentioned that they had this great earthbender who was transporting their great orb. It's apparently a big honor, but
Mhm.
as he approached the finish line, he was attacked by the other tribe, the Zhang, and like the dude attacked him and stole the orb. Is what how the story goes for them.
Yeah.
And when I loved that whole sequence, and I also like that they equated the transporting of the orb to like the setting of the sun, like
Yes.
which is pretty
Hmm.
cool. Like it's just a small thing. And then
It's very neat.
the Zheng tribe say that one, it's got an art style change, which like
Which is
all
very interesting. Why didn't I don't know why the first one didn't. Why does this one have an art style change? I never
yeah, it
got
is
that.
odd. I also like I did not like the art style change. I can't lie. Like it I
It
was
threw me off.
it's so jarring. Like it is so and it works for saying like for giving that contrast in
Hmm.
the
And
stories
being
like
like, this
it's
is a different
different version of it.
side. But I
And
wish
like
like both had different art styles that had to do with the tribe telling the story. Because
yeah,
that
they
second art style
definitely
felt related to like the messy
mhm,
tribe. Like it was very blocky and chunky and like
and jagged
odd
kind
and
of yeah.
messy looking.
But like I feel like that they changed the animation like fluidity of the Ganjin one. Like he moved
Yes,
differently than how
differently.
the characters normally do move in the show.
Hmm.
But the art style for the first one was still much. It looked basically
Very
like
simple.
normal, like
Yeah.
Avatar art style. Um, yeah, so that art change was definitely like very jarring. I thought it worked, but I was like, oh man, I'm glad this is only like a 45, like a 30 to 45 second bit, like
Yeah, because I was
because
like,
it's. Oof.
ugh.
I mean, they nailed it. Like they got that style down, but just not for
Hmm.
me.
And it like
Um,
fits with the music. I see how it works and everything, but
yeah. So they tell their version of the story where they're saying that their guy is essentially just like helping the other tribe's guy. Like that he,
mhm.
whenever he approaches the finish line, essentially he like is injured and falls down, and like they say that their guy went to help him, and he was like, no, focus on the orb. And so he
Mhm.
went and grabbed the orb, but then whenever he gets to the gate, the Ganjin guards like
They
don't
think
listen to
he's
him,
mhm.
and they say that they throw him in prison for 20 years. And so those are the two sides of the story that are both related to Katara and Sokka, because they're obviously like asking, like, "Hey, why do you guys hate each other? Like,
Yeah.
what's the deal here?" Um, and so they get each of those sides, and then I also do love the line where because you have Aang by himself, like overlooking both of the campsites, and then the
Oh,
Canyon
yes,
guide
we go
comes
to
up to
him.
him
Mhm.
and he's like, lonely, isn't it? Like being impartial. And like that's such a good
Aw. I
like
didn't catch
little
that.
it's such a great
I love
line and
that.
it's
Yeah.
such a it just goes to show how hard it is to try to see like the full
Both sides.
scope of the thing
Mhm.
and like not just jump to like one conclusion or the other and how important that is, but also like how difficult that can be because it's so like the easier thing to do is to pick a side and
Yeah.
go headfirst into it and just like this is how the situation is. I'm not gonna
I'm gonna
accept
fight
anything.
this side. Yeah.
Yeah, like I won't accept anything from the other
Like
side.
this
Like
is
I
the
won't
black and white
listen.
answer versus and like that's I think
Like,
that's a good analogy for the whole show. It's not just black and white. The
mhm,
all of the Fire Nation aren't bad. We see some good ones.
yeah,
And all of the good people aren't good.
aren't
Like
good. Yeah,
so it's like a really good again, like yin and yang. It comes back a
mhm,
lot. Like there is good within the bad, and there's bad within the good.
right.
Um, it is seeing Aang try to handle being in between that and not choosing a side and
And
not
finding the
choosing the black or white
peaceful.
option. It
Yeah,
is gray. It is complex. It's
hmm
complicated. Like it's
and the avatar needs to be able to see that and to be able to do
yes,
that. And like again, this is why not filler. It's so good
not
actually. Like
filler. It
it,
helps.
it reinforces all of the themes of the show.
Yes.
And so yeah, like I love that moment when they're sitting there and they get that. I
Mhm.
noted the line from Katara whenever she's like presented with the food and she's like, well, I guess if everyone is doing it, it's okay. I'm like, "Ah,
Yes.
no, 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 no.
Just
Like
because
that's such
everyone
a
else jumps off a bridge doesn't mean you should, Katara.
yeah, right. It's like the classic, like, no, that's such a dangerous like mindset to have. And like
Yeah.
that's not how you solve things like intelligently and the way you should do things. Um,
I do
so
love
that's
that they do
great.
show that like it's not like not good mindsets to have. Like I do
Yeah,
like that the show
exactly.
does focus on that because that is how wars happen and how
Hmm
like things get out of control like that.
It's just like putting those blinders on too and being like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
well, like this, just being in the narrow view of it and being like,
Yeah.
well, this is how other people are doing it, so it's fine. Like that's
Hmm.
not. No, you got to change things and like try to be better and stuff. Um, So yeah, we get that, and then we get to the next day. They're almost to the other side, and now, of course, again, Katara and Sokka have both chosen a side. They're like fully ingratiated in the ones that they're like because they've heard the
Yeah.
story, right? The story has been told to them, the one side of the story, and so they're like, oh, well, this is the way that it went down. So obviously, these people are right,
Hmm.
which is great. It just goes to show how quickly like and easy it is for that to spread like
Hmm.
through like to other people, and you can
For
see
people to be
how.
influenced. Like I've seen this happen on the internet before where one person will post a video and be like, this person did this to me and this to me. And everybody's like, oh my God, like, let's get this person. What do they do? And then
Mhm.
you find out like they tell their side of the story. And then you're like, no, I did this. And then this person did this to me. And that actually didn't happen. And you're like, whoa, what? And
Yeah,
everybody just went with it before researching and went to go get that other person without
yeah.
actually.
It's the like it plays into the worst impulses of people and how like
Mm.
quickly people can be driven to like um no, not vindication. Can't there's a V word that I was trying to
There's a,
think of.
yeah, I know what
But
you're
like
talking about.
how like quickly people can be drawn to do that and to like just immediately go against people with not that
Hmm.
much effort. And so it's really
Hmm.
easy to see how that something like that can perpetuate through this tribe through generations and things like that.
Hmm.
So that's easy to see. They almost get to the side. Aang is asking for ideas on how to climb the wall because they have to get out still, and the guide
Hmm.
can't earthbend, and Aang hasn't learned that yet, so they're stuck.
Nope.
And
Hmm.
we don't have Appa because he's transporting the other people. So again,
Yep.
important that Appa's not around.
Yeah.
And they
Which
just start.
another like a small little thing.
Mhm.
Um, when we get to the Ember Island players, which will be at the end of season 3, there is a joke within the play that the gang just flies over the canyon with no further incidents. And it's like a joke. They're
Oh,
like, let's just fly over this canyon. Yep,
that's it.
that's it. They
Yeah,
just
no,
fly over it.
that's good.
It's a really
Um,
funny joke about that. I
so
love it.
I love things like that. That honestly, that play is really good. Super.
I
There's a
can't
ton
wait to get to that episode. I cannot wait.
ton of good stuff there. So he's asking for ideas, and the tribes just start fighting. Right? They're not.
Hmm.
They of course find things to fight about, and Aang is like, harsh words won't fix the problem. Action will.
Hmm.
And they take that very literally. They're like, "You're right, Avatar," and they draw
Let's fist
swords.
fight.
And so I love the sword fight though between the two like different
Yes.
leaders. It's such a good fight. Like it's so well done and intense and like
Like just a small thing like that of two characters that are only in one episode, they create fighting styles for both of them. Like they give them a
mhm.
personality through their fighting. They don't just make it basic, you know? They
Yeah, and I mean, you
kind of
can
do.
even see it like in their weapons and the difference in their weapons,
Yes.
and of course, like I mentioned the robes for the Ganjins, but the whole design for the Zhangs too is a very like very much informs their characters and their personalities and things like that,
Hmm.
which is cool to see. And so yeah, they start sword fighting. I literally in my notes put sword fight in all caps
Sword
because
fight.
it's just awesome to see. And then that's also when the tribes start fighting we see that all their food gets spilled, and so Aang sees that
Mhm.
they've all brought food, and he gets mad.
I
He's like,
love when Aang gets mad. Like he
he is,
rarely does. I
yeah,
love when he loses his shit.
he's angry about. I mean, justifiably so. He's like, you
Justifiable. Like he
idiots.
needs to yell at them.
He's like, we could have been fine, but you all brought food in here, and so that's why the crawlers attacked, and they more canyon crawlers emerge. I also love though before that, Aang says they're awful, but he sees the egg custard and is so tempted for a second.
Yes, it's such a funny little bit where he's like, "Oh, what is that? An egg custard?"
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, maybe." But then the canyon crawlers emerge, and so there's more pressing matters. Um,
Hmm.
Katara and Sokka run. They just want to get out alive. Sokka admits he only cared about them because they fed him, which is
I
so in line with
love
Sokka's
that
character.
line
Like,
so
of course
much.
he's
He's
gonna
like, "I
listen.
really only cared about it because they fed me."
Yeah, of course that's where Sokka stands on it. Like they gave him food, and that's all it takes for
Yeah.
him. Like, come on. Um,
So simple.
so they have to begin fighting the crawlers, but they don't really like make a lot of headway
Hmm.
and there's just too many of them. But Aang, being the Avatar and being smart, he sees that they just want the food, and so
Yeah.
he uses some of the bags that they have that a lot of the food was in and stuff to muzzle the canyon crawlers, and
Hmm.
then
I love
literally
this
like
tactic.
steer them like they're a horse. Like the bag things have reins, and so like he tells everyone he's like, "I'll do what I do." And so then everyone starts muzzling the canyon crawlers and riding them like horses, and they
Hmm.
use them to go up the side of the canyon, and that's how they get out, which is such a smart,
Genius.
yeah, it's such a smart way for them. And it's
I wondered
also,
IQ.
yeah, it's cool because they do like it's an escape that makes sense because we've seen that canyon crawlers obviously can climb all over the thing, and so it's like, ah, that's their way out, is
Like
actually
that's
the
a great
like
way out.
the problem is the solution. Ah, love to see it. um so they get up to the top there. I love that the old man is like, they're coming for me. Like whenever they first start
Yeah,
to, like before they escape, he's like, oh, they're coming to finish the job, and it's like, dude,
they're
they just
coming
want,
back. Like he's like traumatized. This poor old,
yeah,
and reasonably so. That looked horrifying.
yeah.
And
I mean,
also,
I
like
can't even
he
imagine.
falls off of the canyon crawler at the end. He like lands on his broken arm. Like an
Re-breaks it
old man.
or like breaks it in more places.
That's so
Um,
painful.
yeah, no, no thanks. Would not like that. I've never broken a bone, thankfully, knock on wood.
Knock on
So I
wood.
can't even.
Yeah, same. I don't.
Uh, no thanks.
Shout out to
Don't want to
you
deal with
if
that.
you've experienced that. R.I.P.
Not
So
me.
sorry. F in the chat for you. All right.
Yeah. So the tribes start to make up kind of, but then of course they start fighting again and arguing about, the past. And Aang comes up with a genius solution. He says, hey, actually, like I knew the two people that y'all are talking about. And he's like, they were not enemies, they were brothers, and they were actually just babies. He's like, I may not
Mhm.
look it, but I'm 112 years old. Like I knew them back then, and they were just playing this game. And so he explains this game that they were playing, and comes up with these like
Mm.
points of comparison for each of their stories that like fits in with what he says is what actually happens. And he calls the game redemption, which is hilarious and like super
Yeah.
into it. He's like, come on guys, like get it together. And
It
he's
was
like,
just a
the
little
brothers,
game.
yeah, he's like, the brothers respected each other to like share the same field with each other. Like
Mhm.
it's time
I also
to
do love
forget the
in the
past.
little when he's telling the little story, the referee was a panda.
Oh yeah, it's so funny.
That's so random, but I love it. It's so cute. Like,
It's great.
okay.
I love the little animation that they do whenever he's telling the story. Like, one
Yes.
like changes the appearance of them to then look like brothers, and then shrinks them down
And
to
then
be
brings
like
them down
little
to babies.
8-year-olds, and then like draws the field and the goalposts and stuff. It's hilarious. And so,
Good.
yeah, he tells them that, and he's like, "It's time we forget the past and look to," or the other guy says it's time to
Mhm.
forget the past and look to the future, which is again one of the main themes that keeps coming back in the
Of
show. That's
this
super
show.
important that
Yep.
everyone needs to learn. And so that's great. And the tribes are friends now. Appa shows back up with the people that he needed to transport and gets that. And the tribes make up and they're like, hey, we can, figure out and travel together now, which is great. And then we get to one of the more questionable parts of this show where I will be like, I don't.
Yes.
So
This is the part
Aang,
where I'm like, okay, I get why people don't like this episode.
yeah, so the tribes go away, and Sokka and Katara are like, "Wow, it's crazy that you like knew them, the brothers and stuff." And he's like, "Well, actually, I didn't." He says that he made up the whole story, which is it makes it makes him feel really disingenuous, which hurts.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it
Of
like I can
course.
see both sides of it because it's like, okay, the point of the episode is that he needs to figure out ways to bring peace to opposing sides and opposing
Yeah.
conflicts.
And
And
sometimes
so
you're just
like,
gonna have to lie.
yeah,
Like,
and so like he finds a creative way to do that and like solve the problem.
mhm.
And so it makes sense. It just feels weird. Like it's just a,
It feels like out of character because Aang rarely lies. He hates lying.
yeah.
And
And so it
like he's only done it like we've seen it like at the in the first episode he lies, but it's like a
yeah.
big thing. He's hiding the fact that he's the avatar.
hmm And that's more of a like, I mean, he does directly lie there, but that's more in line with like a lie of omission versus like straight up just like making up an entire
Making up an
story
entire story.
to
Yeah.
like lie to these people. And like,
Because like we don't think I don't know, there's not like really much proof that he's able to come up with something like that on the spot. Like I could see Katara has improvised like that before.
mhm,
But I wonder if it's him watching Katara and being like,
and like
okay,
learning.
learning, like, okay, you can improvise in situations like this. Like he lied about Pippin Papsilopsicodilus,
Yeah.
and that was off the
However it's
top of
said.
his head.
Yeah. I mean, it's just,
The more I think about it.
it works and it makes sense. It reinforces the theme that he has to like creatively solve the problem. He has to think outside the box. It's up to the avatar to bring peace. He does that. Like it checks
But
all of the
something
boxes that
about
it
it
should,
feels
but it
off.
just feels weird. Like
Yeah, like it doesn't
it does
feel
like
right for
it
some
like he
reason.
gets to that and you're like, I don't,
Like, huh?
if it's a weird, I don't,
I
I
can't
feel like
explain it either. I don't know the
it's
words
something
for it, but it's
that you can't articulate. It's just the like, you know it when you see it or you feel it, where like there's a line somewhere there that he
yes.
crosses, and it's just like,
I
it's
can't
because
like
it feel I think it's because it feels like manipulation. Like it feels like
oh,
he's manipulating these two groups of people. And it's not that
and like that's a
he's
pretty
doing
big
it.
lie to tell. Like that's
Yeah,
their
and
full
like,
backstory. Like who knows if that
yeah.
was like a real like, I don't know, conflict. Like one side really did do that to the other, but
And it's
I
because
mean
it
it was just
also
one
like,
person, but
if I think it's too, because you can then like extrapolate that and be like, well, he did it for the right reason and for like the right thing. But
mm,
then like it's dangerous to apply that logic to other things, right? You could be
yeah,
like, oh, well, in like, whatever thing in war or whatever other heinous thing people will try to justify. They're like, well, I like did this horrible thing, but it was for the right reason
for
because
the
of
right
X, Y, and Z,
reason.
right?
Like we just
And
saw
so like,
Jet in
yeah,
last week.
it's so like it just doesn't feel right, even though it does like check a lot of the right boxes. It's this weird, and like I don't really know what the solution there is either, because it also would be like super
Weird if he
convenient if
did
he
know them.
did
Yeah, super
just know
convenient.
them and like that was the solution. So I
So I
don't
definitely I
know.
like the choice more of using it as a lie rather than it not being a lie. I definitely like it more,
Yeah,
but it still does feel like there's
I
something
feel like
unsettling about it.
I feel like I guess it would have been better had they just been able to genuinely have them reconcile their differences,
Hmm.
and like
But I don't think
the
they could do that if they didn't.
yeah, it's a
Hmm.
it's tough. It's so
It's a
tough
tough
because like I
subject.
feel like that would be more satisfying of them being like, well, regardless of what actually did happen, like that's not important. We don't need that to control our present and our future, right?
Hmm.
Like that would be good. I don't know, but then and it's tough because it's a good like character and like comedy beat too, where he's like,
Hmm.
and it makes sense that he would make up, like this does feel like a story that a kid would make up to like explain these things and like rationalize these things, right? He's like,
Hmm.
he turns it into a game, right? That these two babies played
That these two
essentially.
babies are
Like,
playing. And that does feel like the only way to solve it because you can't be like, in this situation, this person was right. In this person's situation, this happened. Or it's like, just get over it. Like, you can't help but think, like, oh, but remember when this happened?
mm-hmm.
Like, if you just say the situation didn't happen at all, you could, then it really, like, everybody has to be like, oh, we have to really drop this because this, we're fighting literally over nothing.
Yeah,
So it is like a good, if it ain't
it
broke, don't fix it. It works.
yeah, like it works. It's just it's definitely the biggest I think thing in the show that like stands out as
I
feeling
think, yeah, the only part of the show where I'm like,
like it feels off still,
this
even though it
doesn't feel in
works.
character for Aang. I think that's why.
Yeah, I
Maybe I'm
know.
like, it feels, or
It's
like he
just
wouldn't do it without telling at least the audience
yeah.
or like giving
Which like I mean
hint.
I guess he does by the end because he tells Sokka and Katara. But like
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a weird. It's I like got to that part and I was still like it was just I was enjoying the episode so much and it like got to that and I was like
I was like,
I
why
guess.
is it because maybe like previously we've seen him come up with ideas and we've seen how he comes up with the ideas before he executes it, or we're like, we
I
hear that.
guess yeah, because it feels like a retroactive thing as opposed to like
Hmm.
a being in on it the whole time thing. It
Hmm.
like I guess it probably feels odd because we feel like he just lied to us first. Like so
Yes,
we're
maybe
like
that's it. Yeah, we
that
feel like he
probably
lied
it
to us
probably is
first.
the order of information because like every other time we're in on it from the beginning, because like when he
Yes,
lies about being the Avatar, like we know that he's
we're
lying
in
about
on
being
that.
the
We know
Avatar,
why. Yeah.
as opposed to this, like we're like, oh, you just lied to me too, bro. Hey, like
Yeah, it's like,
come
wait,
on.
I believed that. Hold on.
Maybe that is why it feels weird.
I wonder if that's why it feels weird. Yeah. Very interesting.
Did we just crack it? I mean, did we crack?
I think
Maybe.
we just cracked it.
It's a
I
lot
think
of
we just cracked it.
that's a lot of interesting stuff though. But yeah, that's the recap of the episode, the play by play. Whenever we come back, we're gonna talk more about this episode and how its absence from the live action series affects the overall narrative. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Negan.
And I'm Bree. Enjoying this show on the Aspect Network?
Then check out Viltramikes, an Invincible podcast.
Each week, we go back and discuss your favorite episodes of the series and review new episodes as they release right on Amazon Prime.
Join us as we travel space, time, and the multiverse with Mark Grayson and discuss one of the most exciting superhero series on TV on Viltrumics, here on the Aspect Network.
And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Bending the Narrative. Each week, we dive into Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender live action series, and while you can find our overall thoughts on the season in our first episode, throughout book one, we will be discussing in further detail how each episode compares to its live action counterpart. Since very few elements from this episode make it into the live action adaptation, we're going to discuss the consequences of this and how it affects both versions of the series. Kate, let's start with you.
I mean, there's not much adaptation. I don't think any of this, none of this makes it
none
in
of
at
it
all.
really.
Yeah, not even
Yeah.
like little bits of it. Which
They just,
I
like-
think this is the one where I'm like, that's fair. We can do without.
Yeah.
And that's why I think some people call it filler, but because it adds definitely to the characterization. We get some good things from it, but I
Mhm.
don't think much would change if we didn't have this episode. If this episode was withheld, we wouldn't, I think, nothing, not
The overall narrative stays
the
the
overall
same.
narrative stays the same. Nothing would change that much.
Yeah,
I don't think we'd miss much.
this is tough for me because I love this episode a
I know
lot
you
now.
love this episode.
I'm a big I've become a big defender overnight, right? But yeah, I mean, it goes back into the like the not everything needs to be directly plot related to like be there thing, and why I
Mhm.
think that it's justified that it's here in the animated version. I do agree though that if you are gonna have to cut something for time, which we've already established, they didn't need to cut anything for time because the season is longer than the
Mhm.
book. But anyways,
Mhm.
if you're gonna make the decision to cut some stuff, I get cutting this one because yeah, narratively and plot wise, you can axe it and nothing like you don't if you're doing a rewatch of the show, you could skip this episode and you would be missing nothing. Like
Yeah. You
it
would be
works still. Everything is fine. Nothing I don't believe gets called back to except the joke that they make in the I'm blanking on the episode name that you just mentioned earlier, but the play whenever they're
Oh,
talking about how did I already forget this? We literally were
that-
talking about it like
no,
5
wait, just
minutes
because
ago.
you forgot it, now I forgot it. Ember Island
Um,
players, Ember Island players.
Yes.
I want to
that
think
one.
the bending players. I was like, no.
But yeah, I mean, aside from that little joke, like, and even the little joke is talking about the fact that you don't need
That
it.
you
right?
don't need it, that they
Like,
just skip right over it,
yeah,
which is
so, like-
hilarious. Like, they do make fun of themselves, and they are like, they could have just flown over this. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, you could logistically cut this one. But
Mhm.
I will argue the thing that you lose here, which is a very important part of the Avatar thematically and from a character perspective, and this goes for Aang, but also like the position of being the Avatar, is that it does emphasize the importance of like the politics side of being the Avatar and like needing to be able to negotiate peace amongst peoples and like
Mhm.
building and developing that skill. Like that's an important thing for him. And you can cut that, I think, because you do get that in a bunch of the
In
other
a bunch of
episodes.
other ways.
anyways,
Yeah, we
like-
still get that.
This is just further emphasis on it. So like it's not needed technically, but like damn, I love it a lot. Like it's really good. I think I also love it a lot because like it emphasizes that, but then it also I think says a lot of important stuff about the like negative effects of tribalism in the sense of like just consistent like thinking and like not wanting to listen to anything from the outside and
Anything
being
else? Yeah.
yeah, and just like being stuck in your ways and how that will perpetuate itself and that how that can be
And
a
how
negative
pointless
thing.
it is, and how it leads to danger, and how it
Yeah, and like people putting
affects
themselves
communities. Mhm.
in these situations that they don't need to be in that's
Mhm.
detrimental to everyone for no reason really.
It's two
And
groups
for-
that are refugees who have lost
Yeah.
their homes due to the Fire Nation and are trying to get to safety. And this problem still prevails. Like, this still
Yeah.
stops them from working together.
Yeah, and so like I love that it does shine a spotlight on that. I also like that it even though Aang's story about what the solution is a lie, it's an example of how easy it is for stories to become muddled over time. Like the further
Mhm.
removed you get from an event, but it's a long game of telephone, right? Like
Yeah.
it-
Which I do
and-
actually think, like, that also makes it why the lie is kind of, uh, because
Yeah.
you are like, oh, this is a thing that happens where something simple happens and then the story gets exaggerated more and more over
hmm
time.
Yeah,
And
like
like
each
that is it.
generation adds more like, well, actually this dude like whenever he
Actually,
fell,
he
he
made
like
it.
punched him in the face. That's not what they
Yeah.
say, but you know, like
Yeah, they like
like
add more to it and they make it
mhm,
worse and worse, like how rumors
yeah.
spread and everything, and how people just add more and more and make it crazier and crazier.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
but
like
so when we figure
taking
out a lie, we're like, oh, so did that really happen? Is that really the true
yeah,
story? It
that
like,
does
what is the real story then?
I was gonna mention
Maybe
that like
that's why.
I'm like I
Back to the
do
lie.
I do want to know what the actual like what actually happened because obviously it's got to be something in
Yeah.
between the two sides, like the two extremes, because they clearly like have added on to it forever. But it's like we don't know.
Mhm.
Which I mean, I guess I do kind of like that they just leave that mystery. Like we don't know exactly
Mhm.
what happened and
Like we
like
don't need to
why.
know. Mhm.
Yeah, which is good and like that works. But yeah, I do like that it's an example of like how dangerous that can be and how easily that can happen, and the fact that like over
Mhm.
time and on a long enough like time span, things
It could
will
cause a
get
war.
yeah, will get exaggerated. It will lead to all of these negatives from something very simple, just because people aren't willing to listen or people are like so
Mhm.
stuck in their ways and things like that. And so I think that yeah, on the whole, it doesn't really impact the overall negative or the narrative if you axe this, but like there's a lot of stuff in here that like I personally I'm
But
like "Ah," like
still,
I love
it's
those ideas
good.
so much and like they're very important things I think. And so the fact that we
Mhm.
do have an episode that spends the time to like emphasize those things is really cool. And also I love the designs of the characters a lot. So
That
so
is
seeing
true.
those
Of
so
all
seeing
of
those was
the
rad.
Yeah, of all of the both communities, the
hmm
bender, the earthbender
Oh
guy,
yeah, he does have a pretty cool design. I like
he's
he's
so
pretty
cute.
unique.
He's just a little old man.
Yeah, and he's got his like straw hat. It's
I
pretty
do
cool.
like how funny he is. Like I
But
love how at the end, I don't think we talked about this. He was like, "I'm going with them. I'm never going back to this cave
oh
again."
yeah, he was like,
Or
I'm
this
done. I'm
not
over it.
cave.
Like
Yeah,
the canyon.
this damn canyon again. He's so over it.
Yeah,
Did I
which I
write
mean,
down what he said? It's so funny.
justifiably so, because dude just got both of his arms broken.
Like he got his ass beat, so
Yeah.
it's good he
But
got out of there.
there's not
But yeah, so
there's
it
not that
missing
much.
from the live action is not the end of the world. And actually, the one thing where I'm like, yeah, you didn't need this. You
It's
were okay with
fine, I
that.
guess. I
We didn't
guess.
need to reference it. We didn't need to have it in.
It honestly, actually, I just now convinced myself to be happy that it's not in live action because it probably just would piss me off. So,
I would have been like, why
so
did you need that?
they would have missed the point
It
completely,
would
I'm
have pissed
sure,
me off.
somehow.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, actually I'm glad it's not there. It's good. We're good. It's
I'm happy it wasn't even referenced. Nobody was like, oh,
what about
remember
yeah,
the Ganjins and the Zhongs? Remember
it's fine.
that?
I'm glad
Yeah.
they just were like,
Or
no, it's
actually, you know
okay.
what? Stop touching it.
Yeah.
Stop touching my
Animated,
show.
I'll just rewatch the episode. It's fine.
I'll just rewatch the episode. How about that?
Acceptable omission. Good job, Netflix. You got one
Yeah.
point.
One
The
one
point was them
out
leaving
of
something
a
alone.
thousand. Yeah, it was like not doing something, which was
Yeah.
great.
Their inaction was fantastic here. Thanks so
They're in
much.
action. It's needed
Love that.
sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to add on this episode?
No, this one's quick because I mean, yeah, like we said, they just axed the whole thing. There's not really
Next
points of
thing.
comparison.
Yeah. All right. So up next, Alex and I have a new segment called
hmm
Avatar Art Corner. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Alex. Enjoying this show on the Aspect Network? Then you should check out my show, Philosophy of X. Each week, I pair an X-Men character, story, or concept with a relevant philosophical topic and explore how the two relate to one another. Join me on my journey to examine the world of X-Men through philosophy. And now, back to the show.
All right, guys, welcome back to Bending the Narrative. Today we have a new segment called Avatar Art Corner. This is a time where we highlight some of the amazing concept art from the world of Avatar. And this is all coming from the Avatar The Last Airbender, the official art book of the animated series. This is the second edition that I have. This is by Brian Konietzko and Michael DiMartino. And today we're going to be exploring the first half of book one. So, Alex, let's start with you. What is some of your favorite art from this book?
Well, we're just gonna start going through chronologically with what we've covered. So we'll get up to because we're like just about halfway through the season now. So
Yeah.
we're gonna cover a lot of the stuff. So I think it's really cool just being able to see the gang, their kind of like character turnarounds and their
Yes.
designs. You know, seeing them Appa, of course, looks sick, and then I love that you could see the frozen iceberg ball. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting that they have a note that says that they never imagined that Aang and Appa were frozen solid inside the iceberg, but rather
Mm.
they envisioned them floating within a hollow pocket of spiraling energy.
Ooh.
And so they would have liked to show that, but that would have been just too much to like animate and
Animate.
do that.
Yeah.
But also, I think that like makes so much sense as to how they were able to survive, you know, as
Yeah.
opposed to like
They didn't really
being
they more of so hibernated kind of
yeah for 100 years as opposed to like. But
within.
this is also why, spoiler alert for stuff way in the future and in Korra, but like Aang dies pretty young, especially for an avatar,
Mhm.
and it's because he was using the avatar state for 100 years straight essentially.
Which
Like,
is crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's insane. Like, arguably the biggest feat ever. Like,
Yeah.
Rowan's just
Yeah.
in the avatar state for 100, like a century, which is unbelievable.
Insane. Yeah.
But it's just really cool to see these designs like so early on, and the fact that they like very much had these such important visual cues established already, and just like really sets the tone for the series from the get-go, which is nice to see. I love the sketches of the water tribe, the
Yes.
like just dilapidated, like it's been worn down by 100 years of the
Years of
war and
war.
everything like
Yeah.
that, which is cool. um I love seeing the differences in Iroh and his character like evolution.
Yes, they show them many different versions of him, which he looks. They wanted him. They say too. They wanted him to just be a regular. Like they wanted him to be Zuko's Sifu.
Hmm.
But then later on, they made a change to make him his uncle, which
Yeah, makes
elaborated
sense. And
on
is
their
so
relationship.
like you get so many things that like fall into place from that decision. But I do
Hmm.
like that he, like in the earlier sketches, you really see him become more in his like he looks more serious in the earlier ones
Yes,
than
he
he
looks
does, and
very
it's
like angry and a
hmm
force not to be reckoned with
yeah.
until they come
Whereas
to
like
his like cute little old man demeanor. Like he's a
yeah,
cute little old man, you know?
yeah, you just want to hang out with him.
Just want to hang out with
Um,
him, have some tea with him. And they say too, the great voice actor Mako really helped bring that into him and the warmth. Um,
yes, absolutely
that
nailed
was
it.
that's a big key to his character's warmth and kindness.
And you get that. Then you have again in the next couple pages just
Wow.
yeah, you get Zhao, you get the like general designs for the Fire Nation soldiers and like them kind of dialing in that look and their like the menacing stature that they have. And
So sick.
he
And
they
honestly,
even
I
said
love
that like the helmets inspired the
yes.
blade shaped bow of Zuko's ship, which is so cool. Like you just they create a visual language and you see it through everything. Like and
It's
it
so
works
sick. And
so
I love the
well.
masks too. They had these the
Hmm.
original mask designs. They remind me of I don't know what to call it, like kabuki masks for like kabuki theater, but they are
Hmm.
it's a type of theater in Japan. I think it's kabuki theater. But they
Yeah.
had masks that look like that in Japan with that design.
Yeah.
Um and they'd send like I can definitely see the inspiration there for those early designs. And they look
Yeah, and
creepy. They look scary.
they're so terrifying. And
Um,
they ended up settling with masks that ultimately resembled like graphic skulls,
yeah.
which like yeah, you don't really like even think about it when you're looking at it, but yeah,
But it
yeah,
does,
as
yeah.
soon as you see that, like oh, that is exactly how that looks.
That is a
Um,
skull, huh? Yeah.
yeah, right. And then yeah, like you were saying, we get Zhao, who looks super cool. I like the different faces that they
The
gave him,
different
or that they were
faces are
like
insane.
playing around with him. I like the different hairstyles too. They're very wild. Um,
Hmm.
I think the
Like I like that
sideburns are
they
definitely
the
like
sideburns. Like I like originally they wanted to go for like scary, like rugged biker
mhm.
guy, but originally they went for just a guy who's like in corporate and really good at his job,
Yeah.
like um like a money man or what do they call him?
Hmm.
They could well because they wanted it to be like
A
a
sleazy
reference to Jason
politician.
Isaacs villains, which
Yeah.
they planned that before they even got him. Like they didn't even think they can get him as a voice actor until they got him on this, which I think
Hmm.
is so cool.
Yeah. No, it fits perfectly.
It
And
fits
then
perfectly. What I want to see the exact word that they use.
they said sleazy politician. I think we
Yeah, like
said
sleazy politician. That was the vibe. And I get that. You get sleazy politician from that. He
yeah.
is
Like he's
like
literally
he
just
could
trying
be
to
in succession. Zhao could be in succession.
100%.
I
um, We get some Monkey
The
Yatso
Monkey Yatso and
sketches.
Suki.
They pretty much had Monkey Yatso dialed in from at least from what they
Yeah,
show
like
in
that's
this.
him.
It's yeah, like pretty dialed in immediately. I love, and they do this in a couple different pages and sections of the book, just showing the like the background design for the different sets. Like it's just an insane amount of detail.
Beautiful paintings they made, this
Hmm.
beautiful artwork, and it's just for reference. It's not even in the final show or the final product, but they make these beautiful masterpieces. Like I can only just say it's masterpieces. This is all gorgeous.
Hmm.
These
I
beautiful
love
sketches.
seeing in Suki the slight variations that they played with for
Yeah.
the makeup. I think it definitely like, and of course this is partly like just being used to it and being like, oh, they made the right decision on like the final one, but like I
Yeah.
do feel like they made the right decision on the final one, the final one.
I really like the one they have on the side where her makeup goes above her eyebrows. There's like that red point, but they also do
Mhm.
that on her cheeks, which I
Yeah,
thought is really cool. If they added that, but I can see
it's
why
just
not. I could see it only working in this sketch and not from a far away
yeah, and
view.
having to like it's again you can see a lot
Manually
of the
do that.
decisions in like simplifying stuff down, which is not a negative. It's just like to make it
Yeah, like they
more
have to
yeah,
simplify it.
and
And then we
then
get to King Boomy and Flopsy and Cabbage Man, which is this is where I got
yes,
a lot of my fun facts from. They mention a lot of the anime inspiration in this with Neon Genesis Evangelion and Cowboy Bebop.
hmm,
Um,
so good.
I just love. And you really see that in this art book. It's really cool. We
It's
see
great.
King
I love
Boomy's
his
stance, his different facial
expressions.
expressions,
Yeah,
his
it's
like
great.
moles. They like play around placing his moles. Like very cute.
And
Yeah, the
then
cabbage guy has like
Flopsy,
one little drawing. Flopsy.
Flopsy, of course. This is where we got the just straight the fake Flopsy is what they straight up call the small
Fake
one.
Flopsy. It's like a long-eared rabbit, but then they're like it's fake Flopsy.
Hmm. But I
Oh,
love
and he has like
the
creepy sheep eyes. Even though he's a good.
I love the waterfall cavern scene. Like that's just a it's gorgeous. That's a stunning piece of art. And it's
Oh
just to
my
like
god!
set the it's just the overall design for it. Like, come on, get out of here. Like
I wonder what
that's
they
just
used to make that. I wonder if it was. If anybody knows if it's like
it
oil
looks like
paints,
I think it's that looks like oil
color
paint, but I have no
pencil.
idea.
Who's to say?
It just
Who's
says
to say?
painting by Will
Oh,
Weston.
painting.
Shout out Will Weston.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Gorgeous,
um
gorgeous. Oh, and then we get the Fire Nation prison, which inspired
mhm,
by modern day oil rigs. We did say
yes,
that on that episode. We did say that.
got it. I like that we get the full layout for it here. Like
Yeah, that is really cool. And I guess
that
you need to know that if you're animating it.
yeah, because you gotta know where everything is, which makes sense.
Mhm.
Background design by Dave Filoni is wild to see.
Yeah. You go, Dave
um
Filoni.
yeah, and the like
Those
Haru's
early days.
village, his family farm, also just again like the level of detail in all
The
of these is insane.
scenery,
It's
so
insane,
gorgeous. Like I want these artworks hanging in my house. And this is just
right?
concept art.
Concept art is some of the best art.
It
Full stop.
really is.
We
God,
get
and we see Heibai.
Hey
The
Bye looks
original
cool.
Heibai sketches are terrifying. There's one, um, I don't even know how to describe this face. Where it's the one by
Is
Ethan Spalding. You'll see in the top of the book, Alex.
mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like he looks more like what is it? In Chinese New Year, the dragon's
Oh,
face that
okay.
they have,
Yeah.
you know, those, it kind of looks like
His
that.
face is bigger. It's like
Yeah.
wider than
It's
how it
bigger
ends
and
up being in
wider.
the final.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Rather than
I
that
love
little
the shot of his mouth just wide open, getting ready for the just
oh my
Godzilla
god, the
energy blast.
beam. Yeah.
Which is great to see. Um the next page we get because we're in the winter solstice stuff now because that was obviously the spirit world part one is
That
winter
was the
solstice
Spirit
part
World Part
one.
1, Part
Yeah.
2 now.
And now we get some of the fire temple designs, which
So
is
gorgeous.
you said they came across pictures of the yellow crane tower with like
Yes.
the curling flame-like rooftop corners were a perfect motif for Fire Nation architecture.
Mhm.
And
And if you look up, producer, put an image of that tower, the yellow crane tower, because you'll see the matchup. It's
yeah.
so when you see it, you're like, oh, that's from the Fire Nation. Yeah.
And it's cool. And they even say that the Fire Sages Temple was the first place they exhibited these design elements. Like that makes sense
Uh-huh.
that they would start with there. I also love to. We have Roku on this page, which is cool to see
A
him,
little bit of Roku.
his design dialed in, and then also on the opposite page, just the sketches of Crescent Island is it's such a nice
It's on a
layout.
volcano. And
Like the volcano and the lava flowing through the bridge and the long bridge going up to the temple. I love how the temple is super like when you get to the temple, it's super imposing and tall and stuff. But I love how much it's dwarfed by the
by the
surrounding environment.
volcano.
Yeah, like
Like
the
it's
like
powerful, but it's still not as powerful as nature's
nature.
force.
Yeah, which
Yeah,
is
like
awesome. And the fact that the volcano
just a
ends up
small
reclaiming it
detail.
is so good. So we get to after that we get our
We
pirates
got
and all of
pirates
the
and the gang, the freedom fighters.
hmm which the pirates. It's so cool seeing all of their designs and really getting to dive into like all of their different pieces and see like kind of where their mismatched stuff came from. And the pirate ship, which is a great design too. And then yeah, it's so funny because you can see the sharp contrast in design, like how they normally design characters with like the pirates versus the original like sketch and design
Yes.
for the freedom fighters, and like how unique they all look and how that was carried
hmm
through. But it's great. It gives them so much personality and they really stand out from that.
I really do like that they do. That they're it's like a departure from their um art
The
style
norm.
almost. But
Yeah.
it still
And then
fits. Like I would never notice. I'd be like, they still fit though. They still look like they belong in this world.
mhm. And we get a couple of pages that are dedicated to the treehouse,
Treehouse.
which
Oh
is
my
or like
god.
the village, the tree village, the treehouse village. Um, which is just wild. It all looks
The forest hideout.
incredible. Yeah. There's just so much
Dave
there.
Filoni again.
They said the Tree Houses of Jets gang are very disorderly. They should look kid made and very like jumbled together. Boards of different sizes, odd shaped houses with one wall um, behind the being the tree itself. Like it's just they put so much thought into
So
every
much thought
element
and
of it.
detail. I love too, you'll see on this art, Dave Filoni has a little stamp in the bottom that marks like he first of all he drew this, like what year he drew this, what day.
Hmm.
In 2004. Oh my god. And he has this little stamp with Appa above it and his name signed.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, do you see that?
October of 2004.
That's
Throwback.
crazy. That's crazy.
That is wild. But
And I
yeah,
just
the
love
treehouse is
the
sick. And
treehouse
the
is
fact that we
sick. And I do love, like they mentioned, Dave Filoni's a huge fan of Star Wars. So of
yeah,
course we had to, you know,
of course. And it
of
being
course we had to
called
get
the
the
Ewok,
Ewoks in there.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Ewok village, which
They
is
even
great.
call it that. Yeah. They're like up here in the Ewok section. And then we
Then we
get
get
art of the characters
more
and all their
in
different
depth
little movements.
facial expressions, the character turnarounds, so you can see their full design. I like seeing the differences between the first design sketch and like how they ended up finalizing the looks for
Yes.
each of the and like
I
blending them
always love to see
into
that.
the main like how the animation style normally is. I think they still take that more like not outlandish, but just the different vibe of the original like sketch,
Yeah,
and then
they made it their own, but still
mhm,
kept the design.
which
I
is
still
cool.
don't why don't I remember that one girl? There's one girl with the pin in her head.
Yeah, I mean, she just like what's her name? It literally, I have to go back and read it again. I've read it like so many times recently.
I know.
Sneers, right? Yeah,
Sneers.
she. I feel like she gets like no dialogue.
No dialogue, and I do not recall her. And I have to watch the episode again and look for her. I don't remember
No,
that.
but it's great.
And then yeah, and then we get our crocodile spiders.
Which are
Drawing of
terrifying.
nightmare fuel. Yeah.
Yeah, they're absolutely horrifying. If you've been listening to this on the audio only, by the way, and you're this far, you're a trooper for having
You're
no
a
visual aid.
trooper.
But you should
We're
should
trying our
absolutely go
best
check
to
out the YouTube.
describe them. Check out the
Also,
YouTube
you should
or buy the
buy
book.
the buy the
Get
art book. It's worth it, 100%.
it's so gorgeous.
It's amazing. There's so much insight in here that we cannot even begin to like get
I
through
know.
in a
Great little
podcast. It would
fun
also, I
facts.
don't want to just read the whole book to you guys. Come on, that's not what we're here for. But
Story time. Gather
yeah,
round.
I love the background design for the Great Divide is phenomenal. It's again just
That's
the
the
level
Grand
of
Canyon.
detail.
Somebody went to the Grand Canyon and was like, hey, I came back and I have some sketches. They're like, oh, well, use
Right?
that.
I like the
Cool.
like vent looking nostrils on the
Yeah,
crocodile
it looks like
thing.
engines or like a V8 engine or something. It looks
Yeah.
crazy.
His snout looks like a hot rod, which is wild.
That's so cool.
Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Horrifying
Yeah,
thing.
I don't see crocodile as much
I only see crocodile in the snout. I
in the
thought
snout,
before I looked in the art book to see what they said that he was combined with, I thought anteater spider because
which is fair. That
yeah, because like the snout thing, and I was like burrowing and stuff like that. But yeah, just the snout, I see crocodile. I guess the
mhm,
rest of it, spider is really apparent from the eyes, and then they
yeah,
do end up
the
giving him just
body.
4 legs instead of 8,
Hmm.
which from an animation perspective, 100% understand.
Yeah,
That'd be a pain.
that'd be a pain
Um,
in the ass to draw.
but yeah, I mean, we're caught up now with
That's we're caught
what?
up, and we have more. When we get some more episodes done, we'll go through more of the book.
Yeah,
Guys, we'll see
it's
more from
incredible
the
now.
Bible. I like to call it the Bible, the
it,
Avatar
it, it,
Bible.
is- it is the Bible. It's the Avatar Bible. Um, so yeah, that's the Avatar Art Corner, the first instance of it.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah.
Again, thank you everyone for tuning in to Bending the Narrative. Next week we ride the wave as we enter the storm. But before that, Kate, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at Kate the Official.
Awesome. And you can find me online at AP Batman with 2 T's. Please be sure to subscribe here to The Aspect on YouTube and any platform where a podcast can be found. Please give us a like, leave a comment, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. You can also find us on Twitter/X, Instagram, and TikTok at The Aspect Co. Thank you so much for listening.
And Flameo Hot Man.